Circadian rhythms and Down syndrome dementia. Your internal clock might be killing you, and you probably have no idea it's even broken. Not metaphorically, actually. Right now, as you're watching this, the 24-hour rhythm that controls when your brain stays sharp and when it crashes could be slowly destroying your cognitive future. And here's the terrifying part. The people who are most vulnerable to this invisible damage are also the ones least likely to have anyone checking if their rhythm is intact. So here's the question that haunted a research team for years. What if we've been completely missing the early warning signs of Alzheimer's disease in people with Down syndrome because we weren't even looking at their sleep schedules? The brain is obsessed with rhythm. Every single cell in your body runs on a 24-hour timer. When that timer works, you sleep at night. You're alert during the day. Your memories consolidate. Your immune system hums along. When it breaks, everything cascades. Dementia happens more aggressively in adults with Down syndrome than in the general population. By age 55, more than 50% of people with Down syndrome show signs of Alzheimer's disease. The numbers are staggering. But for years, nobody was asking whether their broken circadian rhythms might actually be part of the story. Scientists assumed it was just genetics, just bad luck, just the extra chromosome playing out its inevitable hand. That assumption was the problem the research team needed to solve. In 2026, a massive collaborative effort across universities came together to test something nobody had really tested before. Chung and his colleagues at Northwestern's Center for Circadian and Sleep Medicine partnered with researchers at Wisconsin, UC Irvine, Washington University, and 4 other institutions under an initiative called the Alzheimer's Biomarkers Consortium for Down syndrome. These weren't casual researchers. These were sleep scientists, neurologists, pathologists, psychiatrists, and dementia specialists who had collectively spent decades watching brains decline. They published their findings in Neurology, one of the field's most rigorous journals. What they were about to uncover would rewrite how we think about early dementia in Down syndrome entirely. Here's what they did. They recruited 251 adults with Down syndrome, ages 25 to 61, and gave them simple wrist-worn actigraphy devices. You've probably seen these. They look like fitness trackers. The magic is that they measure movement patterns continuously for at least 4 days, capturing when you're active and when you're resting across the entire 24-hour cycle. Simultaneously, the researchers ran cognitive assessments on every single participant. They tested memory, processing speed, executive function. They looked for clinical signs of Alzheimer's disease. They collected blood biomarkers to spot amyloid and tau proteins, the hallmarks of dementia. Think of it like this. They were trying to see if the rhythm of your daily movement could predict whether your brain was already starting to fail. The actigraphy device was the key that could unlock an earlier diagnosis. The results hit differently than expected. Adults with Down syndrome who had the most fragmented rest-activity rhythms showed significantly worse cognitive performance. We're not talking marginal differences. People with disrupted circadian patterns performed worse on basically every cognitive test they took. They were more likely to show clinical symptoms of dementia. Their biomarkers were worse. They had more amyloid in their spinal fluid, more tau tangles. The effect sizes were substantial. A person with a severely disrupted rhythm didn't just perform a little bit worse on memory tasks. They performed in a way that looked like someone 5 to 10 years older cognitively. That's the difference between independent living and needing support. That's the difference between living in the community and moving into a facility. That's measurable in terms of actual human life. But here's what's even more striking. The rhythm disruption actually preceded some of the cognitive symptoms. Some participants had broken sleep-wake cycles before they showed obvious cognitive decline. That suggests this could be one of the earliest warning signs we've ever found. Early enough to potentially intervene. The correlation was real, clear, and impossible to ignore. So what does this actually mean if you care about someone with Down syndrome? It means that if their sleep schedule is chaotic, if they're awake at 3 in the morning and sleeping at 3 in the afternoon, that's not just an inconvenience anymore. That's potentially a red flag that their brain is already declining. It's a call to action. It means doctors should be measuring circadian rhythms in people with Down syndrome the same way they check blood pressure. It means melatonin timing, light exposure, consistent sleep schedules might actually be disease-modifying interventions, not just comfort measures. But let's be honest about the limits here. This was a cross-sectional study, which means it's a snapshot in time. It can't prove that broken rhythms cause cognitive decline. It just shows they're connected. That's real science, but it's not the final word. And the participants were all from a specific biomarker consortium, which means they weren't randomly selected. They were people already interested in research. That could skew the results slightly. Those are real concerns worth holding. What this research does is plant a flag in completely different territory. For decades, we've studied Alzheimer's disease in Down syndrome by looking at genetics, brain pathology, protein buildup. All important. But we've essentially ignored the body's master timekeeper. Circadian biology is the background hum beneath everything. It controls immune function, inflammation, metabolic health, memory consolidation. Of course it would affect dementia risk. Of course a broken clock would make everything worse. The really provocative question now is this. How many people with Down syndrome are currently being told they're developing Alzheimer's disease when what they actually need is circadian intervention? How many could stay cognitively functional longer if someone actually addressed their sleep rhythm? We don't know yet. That's the next study waiting to happen. That's the clinical trial that needs to exist. The single most mind-bending takeaway here is that a wrist device measuring when you move might be a better early indicator of dementia than the cognitive tests we've relied on for decades. One final question to sit with. If broken rhythms predict dementia in Down syndrome, what does your sleep schedule predict about your own brain? Turns out scientists have been busy, and they're not done yet.